The Second Amendment allows U.S. citizens the right to bear arms. Ratified in December of 1971, the amendment states, "A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." With a substantial amount of discrepancies between the viewpoints of those in favor of the Second Amendment and those who oppose, we fully support the Second Amendment and are opposed to limiting gun control rights. The right to bear arms is a unique and essential amendment, in which case there should be no laws limiting the control of these weapons.
Severely limiting gun control rights would be a direct violation of U.S. citizen rights. The Founding Fathers wrote this amendment, and restrictions and limitations to freely bearing arms would violate and infringe the rights of citizens in the United States.
James Madison originally proposed the Second Amendment soon after the Constitution was officially ratified to protect U.S. citizens against political tyranny. Some of the amendments, if not most of them, can be interpreted in a manifold of different ways. In June of 2016, the Supreme Court passed a 5-4 majority decision conferring an individual the right to keep and bear arms, however was subject to regulations such as concealed firearms, assault rifles, etc. These limitations directly affect gun owners in America and numerous pro-Second Amendment groups, such as the American Firearms Institute, Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms, Concealed Carry Incorporated, and various other groups.
In response to many of the regulations presented over the years, the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms are dedicated to the protection of the U.S. citizens' firearm rights. Their organization is designed to help all Americans understand the importance of the Second Amendment and its essential role in keeping Americans free.
1.
Too many rules, regulations, and limitations are taking away from the rights of the U.S. citizens, as countless organizations and individuals are directly impacted.
Strict gun control regulations have led to a recent growing support for gun rights. For the first time in decades, there is more support for gun rights than there is gun control. This recent shift is due to a plethora of people in favor of gun rights for the means of personal safety, along with supporting their Second Amendment freedom.
Many research centers, one in particular being the Pew Research Center, surveyed that 52% of U.S. citizens say it is more important to protect the rights of Americans to own guns, while 46% say it's more important to control gun ownership. Not only are more Americans siding with the freedom of the Second Amendment, but they are demonstrating their rights and freedoms as U.S. citizens, the right to bear arms.
The Second Amendment is a telling reminder of America's long-standing relationship with guns dating back to its colonial heritage. The Second Amendment is an essential touchstone for the many people who identify with American society's affinity for firearms. The entirety of our stance on gun control essentially comes down to protecting the freedoms of Americans. Taking away guns from Americans takes away their freedoms and infringes on the Second Amendment a great deal.
The Second Amendment and its incredibly controversial content, along with recent gun violence across the United States, has rallied many people and groups to oppose loose gun regulations. Although this crucial amendment protects the freedoms of U.S. citizens, there is room for concern with the recent gun violence occurrences.
Just as there are a large amount of organizations opposed to gun control, there are a substantial amount of groups in favor of gun control regulations. Groups such as Coalition to Stop Gun Violence, Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence, Everytown for Gun Safety, etc., are all strongly in favor of severely limiting the ability to purchase and own firearms with ease or at all. There have been many valid arguments made that purchasing weapons is too easy for felons and the mentally ill, resulting in shootings across the nation. There has been an absurd amount of mass shootings in the recent years due to mentally sick people attaining firearms. We do believe there should be more in-depth background checks on who is able to acquire a weapon in the U.S., however. We do not believe U.S. citizens using their weapons legally should be punished by taking away their weapons.
There is much cause for concern in this day and age as to weapons falling into the hands of mentally sick people. With the Supreme Court passing votes to regulate and abolish the purchase of assault rifles and concealed weapon carry in most states and regions, these occurrences will become far less often. Due to this, the American people should not have to have their freedoms taken away by the misuse of some individuals. Although many pro-gun control organizations make compelling arguments, adding to many regulations and taking away guns from law-abiding citizens interferes with their gun rights as a U.S. citizen.
Limiting the control of weapons infringes upon the essential Second Amendment, specifically the right to bear arms.
Regulations to the banning of weapons directly interferes with the beliefs of the Founding Fathers of our great nation, that the people of this country have the right to bear arms and those rights shall not be infringed upon. Any rule or regulation limiting the use of weapons across America does not follow the Second Amendment written in our Constitution that we as Americans live by every day. This topic is incredibly important to us because we believe in freedom and we believe in our rights as U.S. citizens that those two very important things should not be taken away from us.